Hi. That was for Lucia. Okay, so check in with me. How do you feel about your practice? What are you struggling with? Even if it's not practice stuff, let me know. Let's start with you, Chloe.
I just got back.
You were gone, right? I mean, we've only been apart for a week, but it could go, beyond that.
Yeah, I just feel like crazy lockdown-ness back way high up in elevation.
Yeah.
This morning I'm just
Yeah, you feel that energy.
oh, yeah. So, yeah. Despite space for kids.
Yeah.
I enjoyed class. I sat down talking with your
Oh, thanks. You talked to your parents about your training? What did they think?
I was like, so you're gonna teach like
Yeah,
so yeah, that was fun. And they thought it was crazy that we already went down or
yeah, you guys have that date saved, right? The cadaver date, okay.
that's like maybe 20s.
Yeah, the people, it can be a really uncomfortable situation. Have we done? It can be really intense. I mean, it's very surreal when you're near people who were once alive and you're like dissecting their body. You're not, but you're seeing these things. But they're very respectful at that place. Like they call the cadavers teachers. These are people who wanted this to happen, like they wanted to donate their body. And so they're just very lighthearted about it, but respectful. The guy who leads it, I think I remember his name Jim. There's lots of laughing at this, like in a respectful way. They really love what you do. So it's a super cool thing. Yeah. But when you tell somebody like, well, you're just gonna be a yoga teacher, why do you need to go study your body? Aren't you just stretching?
Yeah.
Aren't you just doing this all the time?
It's just stretching. It's just stretching.
Yeah. It's crazy though, right? It's yeah.
Yeah. So we just had a crazy trip in general. Like each one of us got a snuggling flu. So like Emma was the first one, like woke up in the middle of like vomiting. Just went over the side of the bed and everyone in the house like I didn't know anything was to clean it. So I was like, well, we're trying to clean up my room. And Jonathan and I were each out the whole day after training.
Oh yeah.
The day that we got it, I literally so like I was walking out of the kitchen and I just totally blacked out. Like I grabbed the wall and I just remember hitting like really on the tiles. Oh my gosh. I'm so Johnny's like worried. He's like, don't go to sleep. And I literally slept the whole day. I was like, yeah.
But it was just like a 24-hour thing and then you're okay.
Yeah, we were awesome. Yeah, it was in so not like it's not like we're at a hotel where you could do longer and anything like that. Yeah, it's not the same. Which is crazy. Oh, I got some my children.
Oh, did you really?
Christy. Yeah, that was a very nice.
Hey, Lucianne.
Hi.
Okay, so it's recording. If you like, how long do you think you can stay in?
So I think it would be better to keep recording it because I'll
That's
probably
fine.
just jump in here for a little bit and then
Sorry, I figured you guys can hear. Well, say hello to everybody because we miss you.
Hi, nice to see everyone.
She says hello.
So we're just checking in, and you can do it in the group if you want. Just check in, tell us how your practice is going, what you're struggling with, what some wins are, anything like that. And I'll record this for you, okay?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, see you later. Okay. Yeah, I lived in San Antonio for a little bit, but I never went to Corpus Christi. Yeah.
So when you see level, do you feel like more?
You can literally feel the water drops in the air. It's when you go to a humid place from here. It's so weird. Do you? Yeah. 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 Well, Texas is hot like a lot for a long period of time. Yeah. Good. Nice. Nice. If you do try to run, from here and you're on sea level and you're at sea level and you try running or something, it's definitely different. You definitely you're like, I'm making a personal record here. That's why they have the Olympic Training Center here in Colorado Springs. People come here to train, and then they train in altitude. Yeah, they're doing that incline like every day. That makes sense. Well, it's kind of like when you're hiking, if you're sleeping in the mountains, you want to sleep higher in elevation than what you're going to be hiking the next day. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, how about you? Yeah.
Because maybe having this affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't always match.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to figure out ways to be
Yeah.
respectful. Well, that's so much.
Yeah.
What I'm, because I'm so black and white, I'm like trying to tell myself there's no one right way.
Uh-huh.
And so then like, what do you want to do?
I love this actually. I've experienced this and I get it 100%. Okay, so here's my experience in it, okay? And I've kind of shared this a little bit because I came from like the Iyengar world, right? So coming from Iyengar to Ashtanga is two totally different worlds. And also in the Ashtanga world, teacher to teacher can be different, right? Is your mom working with an Ashtanga teacher right now? So here's what I'm gonna say, okay? And I think I said this on our very first day too. Like, I'm not the end all be all. No one person should be. It's actually like it's our job, right? We know that it's us and the way that we're, like, what is the right way? What is the wrong way? For me, at least, I was like, this is my teacher. I mean, I had the same teacher for like 10 years until I felt like, okay, I'm ready to work with somebody new. And then when I started working with somebody new, I was like, that's wrong. Like, that is not the right way to do things. That was a whole new box for me to step out of. It was so cool because I had to reconcile somehow. And I had to take the information that I knew from this teacher and the information I knew from this teacher and decide for myself what felt right. And that's where intuition comes in. And you're pretty intuitive, right? So you have to go with your intuition because I'm not the end all be all. Your mom's not the end all be all. This is about you and your individuality as a teacher as well. You're not going to injure people. You're like, that's something that, because there's the other side of that too, where it's a little bit too lax in the yoga world, where, you know, there should be more information and should be more research. But like most of what I learn is like, I'll learn something from my teacher, whoever it is. And then I'll be like, huh, that's new. Like, how do I feel about that? I go to Google, I search things up. I follow other teachers that I respect and I get their input. I ask around. I have a whole slew of people that I get information from. It never should be one person. And then ultimately I take all of that and I decide what feels right. Mhm.
Because I really see the space that you're studying, like,
Yeah.
so, you know, this series with this, there is like a goal that you're working towards, like, you know, this is your current pose, and you know, like like there's always this touch to push towards the next level.
Mhm.
But I also personally feel like I'm doing something wrong in my body. Should even back off those things in order to make it a little longer. And so I'm like working because my mom's been studying so much. She's like watching my form and she's like, for example, she thinks I should stop doing chaturanga with my knees up
Mhm.
until I feel more strength in my shoulders and work out. So what's happening? But
Mhm.
I feel like when I want strength, so like that's what I should. Like, so that's like example.
Yeah, and be careful with the perfectionism thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so take the information you know, the information you're because this is not this is a dynamic process, right? The way that you're doing chaturangas now is not going to harm you, because think of it this way too. When our body is like building and growing, there's a pain process that has to happen too. Like you're using muscles you haven't used before. You shouldn't be feeling pain in your shoulders. So you're feeling like shoulder pain. Okay, is that from your practice or is that from like sitting and working all day? Okay, so you have tightness in the body. Okay, you're basically doing a marathon each time you practice. So you're going to have tightness in the body. Balance it out, like balance out the information. You know, use your knees halfway through, don't use your knees the other half. If you wait for perfection, you're going to miss out on life, right? The other thing is, if you like, you have to do what feels right to you. If you're on your knees doing it, that's also absolutely okay. See if it takes away the shoulder pain. And if it doesn't, then what? Right? Then it might mean that you need more off the mat like work for your muscles, because you are literally building muscle in your body. You're going to weigh more, you're going to feel more pain in your body. You just are with this practice, because it's not a gentle practice. You're using, it's a balance of the muscle and the flexibility. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, take your information, do the research, practice on your mat. Don't ever feel pressure to like, I remember this in the beginning too, when it came to the count. You're like, I think I need to know the poses before I actually learn how to count. Why can't you do both?
Yeah,
That's a perfectionist mindset. It's going to keep you stuck and it's going to keep you feeling either wrong or shame or whatever. I only like my experience with that. I'm not telling you how you do feel. I just know with me, once I did step out of that box, it was a whole new world, right? part of this practice too is like when you do feel pain in the body, that's your body telling you something. Either yes, you need to shift something, or you need some extra attention off the mat, things like that. Like today with Kim was online. Now, we've been working on her spine mobility for a long time. Like she's been working on C and D. Today, when she was in Mari D, she's like, I felt like my spine could go enough, but now I feel it in my foot. We don't have to make that a problem. We can use it as information, right? To shift. And I'm like, okay, well, do you ever like use a ball on your foot off the mat? And she's like, no, I don't do anything with my feet. I'm like, do that. Like stretch the muscles in you're doing a fucking hour and a half practice, like 3 to 5 times a week. You have to do off the mat stuff. You have to. Otherwise, you're just going to feel tight all the time.
We assume the answer is what means, but,
Yeah, but we're not doing like pigeon pose. We're not doing like a ball on the muscles along, on the wall, things like that. Yeah, myofascial stuff, like getting into the fascia. I mean, this practice brings up where we have weakness right away, mentally and physically. And then we have to meet that where it is, figure something out. And then the next thing happens. So technically, yes, we're growing. I wouldn't say there's ever an end goal, because even when you get into the second series, you're going to lose a pose from the first series because you're not doing the same stuff. And so it's not a goal to like have to get that again. I mean, yeah, eventually, but what do I need to do to get there for my body? Mentally, like how do I feel that I've been doing this pose for so I should know this by now, like that kind of stuff. It's always a work in progress, just like life, right? So allow all the stuff to come in. Trust yourself enough. I know you well enough now to know that you are incredibly intelligent. You are incredibly intuitive. You are careful. You are so many things. Trust that. Take from here, take from there, Google some stuff, start following more people on social media that you trust, and then make your own decision ultimately, because right now that's your yoga. The poses are nothing. It's all here. It's what it brings right in front of us is what is our next task, Yeah. And we're all going through that shit too. Like it's different things for each of us, which makes it so cool and individual. Like today, I noticed with your dropbacks, like you had more fear in those dropbacks than you've ever, like you are one of the most courageous people I see in the Mysore room. And today you were just like, all right, let's just get through this. You still did it, right? Her response was like, all right, yeah, yep, that's good. We're going to do it. You're always willing. But I could feel and sense more fear today. And I still feel like it comes from that one time you hit your head. Yeah. 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 And so you're focused on this part of your body that is not as strong as the rest of your body. You're super strong here and you were losing your focus here, right? So interesting stuff. It's not the pose. It's this. That is the one thing that a lot of people actually miss in Ashtanga yoga. Like they're concerned about, well, there's so many injuries or, well, first of all, you always want to work with somebody who has a teacher. I was telling somebody else this earlier. Don't ever work with somebody in Ashtanga yoga that is not working with a teacher themselves. That is dangerous. And you're just going to pick up their shit. You're not going to actually, I don't know. You can still pick up your teacher's shit, but if they're not growing, you're not growing, right? And it's not the pose. It's not the pose. That's what's so cool about it. And the day that I allowed alignment and Ashtanga, like even just the down dogs, I'm like, I don't want to round my spine, you know? The minute I let those two in the same room, it was just such a beautiful thing. And I was like, why didn't I think of this sooner? Like, what do I want for results? If, depending on what you want for that day or you need, adjust your chaturanga, adjust your down dog. Yeah. Your chaturangas have been adjusting for the last 3 years. Like every time we grow in one pose, we're like, okay, now back to the chaturanga. Spread your fingers, do this, go back. We've had to go back to your knees. Like it's totally okay. It's not a regression. That is actually growth. That's actually growth. It's an opportunity for growth mentally, right? So when things come up, we go through like this whole cycle of emotions and ideas and whatever, but don't make it a problem. Make it an opportunity. Really, that's where you're going to get the most out of this practice, is looking at it as an opportunity. Like, oh, well, shit. Okay. Um, and for me, I get the thing about, well, I don't want to move on to this until I actually get this perfect, right? So I've had this conversation with my teacher. I'm like, well, shouldn't I be able to do this before I start doing something scary like dropbacks? All right, if that's where you want to stay in your life, we'll wait until you get that perfect and then we'll grow. He's like, no, that's kind of like if you're in, because he's also in sobriety. So we relate on that level. Like, okay, that's like saying you're just, you're not going to do this until you get this thing exactly right. There's no room for growth there. That's actually limiting. Good stuff. I love it so much. Love it. Okay, how about you? Good. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Feels good. Yeah. Good. Right? Hey, even 6 hours from now, we don't know. And that's okay. Coming back to your chaturanga, I want to play with that a little bit because I know for you what it is. Mhm. It's from here to here, all the way around that whole band. That's exactly what it is for you. So remember what I put something in the chat last week about what are your goals for each student for like it was like hips or something. I think I said hips. Yeah. So what would be your strategy for, yeah, that's fine because we're going to talk about it today. Okay. So Let's just start with chaturanga. Okay. So say you have a student that I swept this morning, but we had a class in here. So you'll find hair. I get so grossed out. Like, don't ever put me in a bathroom that has like moisture and hair. Like, wait, well, we were actually in Winter Park for spring break, and I was like, at the YMCA, I'm like, please, this is torture. Okay, so say you have a student who, because what are like some of the main things that you see in people's bodies that like you guys have all observed a little bit now? And so what are like some main things that you see in people's bodies, like as far as habits or tightness or whatever? Like just name a couple. Yeah, just in general. Well, just in general. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Hips, shoulders, hamstrings. Yeah. Yeah. Right? That's what makes it so unique. Like somebody could be super strong in their legs, but their shoulders are so like they're all shoulders. And so then they have like weak core or their quads, maybe they're quad dominant. And so like their hamstrings are super tight. So if you have somebody who, well, we'll just use each of our bodies, for example, okay? So let's all do the same pose here. Let's see, this, I'm gonna do Padagusthasana. I want you guys to look at my body first. So you see me come in, I'm done with my warm up. You see me go into Padagusthasana like this. What are some things you noted? This is my pose. I'm not warmed up, but this is my pose. Yeah, just verbally come at me. What would that indicate? Maybe. So I'm not like actively using my upper body. Yeah. Why might so right now you guys are both telling me I have some sort of disconnect with my upper body, right? Like I'm not engaging, I'm not whatever. God, I hate this. Yeah. So what's some information you have about my body that might help you with the rest of, like if you see these things about my body, okay, I'm in your mind, you need to strategize. What are you going to hit me on for the poses as far as assisting and adjusting? Right? Like that's just one pose to give you information. You saw I had some tight hamstrings. So what might you do to help me out? For sure. Because my leg, what if my legs were like this? Would you assist me in Pashimo? Probably not. What might you do though? In all my other, because if it's like that, then my triangle is definitely going to be like this. You know, what might you have me do? Like verbally. You might not be able to touch me at this point because my hamstrings are so tight, but verbally you can tell me to do some things that are going to help my hamstrings grow or lengthen. Maybe. Mhm. Yeah. The groin for sure. The groin for sure. And then also, like, what is the biggest thing that's going to help my hamstrings lengthen? Activation of the legs. So every standing pose I do, you're going to watch me and I'm probably not engaging my legs, right? That happens with flexible people too, though. You might see somebody super flexible, just like hyperextending their knee, and I don't have to activate here. Yeah. So as soon as you see someone super flexible, you might have to give them the same type of cues, like act like I do with you. So then what are some postures that, like seated stuff, that you might have to catch me on? Because remember, we want to engage with people at least a couple of times, 2 to 5 times per practice, right? Unless they're a beginner, that's a whole different story. Every fucking forward fold, every single one. You have a lot of opportunities to help your student. Honestly, right? And so I have extra rounding in my back because of the hyperkyphosis in my thoracic spine that I've reversed it, but I easily go into this shape. So what are some things that you can do to help me strengthen my back, standing or seated? Like, what are some poses you might hit me on? We're going to consider that second series. So just primary.
Still. Hold on.
Yeah, that'd be good. Because if I have a weak back, guess what my reverse plank is going to look like? Shit. Especially if I have tight hamstrings and weak legs. Well, I'll show you what it would be like a reverse tape. If I have no upper back muscles and I'm not in touch with my upper body and my hamstrings are tight, I'm like this, right? Yeah. And this person, by the way, is going to do this pose and be like watching everyone else do it different. And they're going to be so self-conscious, but it's their own measuring stick. Like eventually they'll, get stronger in the areas they need to. There's actually a ton of opportunity for upper body strength, upper back strength. Actually, every single forward fold. You're using your back muscles in every single forward. Well, maybe not every single one, but to get closer to your leg, because let me do Janu the way that, okay, so here this is me in the beginning of Ashtanga practice, right? So actually, let me back up further because this might help you too. Well, it'll help all of us. So my forward folds, when I did them the way that I felt comfortable learning them biomechanically, this is as far as I could go. This was my forward fold. I was almost like in the negative. My forward folds were pretty much neutral if I was doing them like to the way that they should have been done, right? And this helped me strengthen areas that I needed to strengthen, right? But it didn't help me grow because I always kept the belt. I always used the block. Now, when I stepped over into the Ashtanga world and my teacher said, just grab your fucking foot. And I was like, but I'm going to break myself. Look at my back, look at my shoulders, look at all of this stuff. So there are like main things you want to look out for. Like if I'm not engaging any muscles, yeah, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to feel this in my lower back. But I'm also, even if I'm just like right here, because I literally like went here and I had such a struggle in my mind to allow my body to just do yoga. But with the right teacher, they'll tell you, engage your leg, hollow out the belly, and my upper back muscles are engaged. I'm safe. The back muscles are actually pushing you closer to your leg. I don't know if those kick on for forward fold. The upper back for sure. Yeah. That's like the best cue that's ever helped me, because you'll get this all the time. If people are out, it just, you'll get this. And so shoulder blades down the back totally activates everything. Yeah. So forward folds are like, I hated them for so long, but the first time I like allowed myself to do that, I was like, maybe I do have longer hamstrings. Here, I was doing forward folds like this for 10 years. And now I can go all the way down. It opened my hips. It like there is what is it called in teaching? You might know this. Starts with a V. The teacher that like for Montessori teaching, you like give them the next step. And even though they don't know it yet, like they'll eventually grow to that. I forgot the psychologist's name, but it's kind of like that. Like you show your body what it can do, you know, safely. And then eventually that mind body connection happens. You know that if we're like under anesthesia, our body is like completely flexible. Yeah. It's our minds. It's tension, it's stress, it's trauma. That's what's holding us. Yeah. Mm, that's so dangerous. It's like there's a level of pushing, and it's our job as like teachers or even as students to know where that limit is and to trust our bodies will do what they're supposed to do, you know? Like let's go with my more challenging side. I can't go down as far on this side because of my hip. I can definitely, like, what is my mindset here? Am I trying to slowly work towards growing? Or am I like just intent, like I have to grab my wrist. I don't care if there's pain, that kind of thing. Like, yeah, that's danger zone. But you can teach your body to grow safely, you know?
I think it's interesting watching that survey. Sometimes like.
That's our pitta people. Yeah. Those are pitta perfectionists, like the peas. There's probably another one. Maybe people pleasing. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, it's ego too. But that's part of the 8 limbs, right? Like that's greed. We are being greedy with our bodies. We're not supposed to be greedy with the body. We want to have a good relationship with the body, but we don't want to stay stagnant.
And I think there's such a fine piece between like not trying to grasp or something. And that's like
Yeah.
it's hard to that's when you're saying, but, like, when it's too crazy,
I ask myself that all the time. Yeah. Yeah. To thine own self be true. Like we know in that deep place, we know the answer. We already know the answer. I know when I'm just like, I mean, for me, I do take it easy on myself. I do what makes me feel balanced. Eventually, if I'm taking it too easy, that doesn't feel good to me because I feel imbalanced. And then I start to, and then I come back around. But if I do too much, then I feel like practicing 6 days a week. I told you guys this. Practicing 6 days a week does not feel great to me. I can't do it. I have a family. I have other things that I do. I do some sort of something, but I don't do like an hour and a half practice 6 days a week. Neither does Taylor as he's gotten older. Yeah.
Kelly watching me today, actually realize like
Yeah.
because I know we've done my since before.
Yeah.
So like
70%. If you come 100% every day, then you're not going to show back up on the mat. Yeah. And the reason, like I had this because I knew Taylor before he even turned 40, and he used to be so much more like, and now he's totally softened. Like it may not seem like it, but he's softened so much. And he's like, yeah, I was getting like way too skinny. I was getting like it was not feeling great to me. So he had to back out a little bit. And then, there's an ebb and flow. There's seasons of our life, whatever.
if you don't do 6 days a week,
Yeah. And some people like, I'm not the teacher for everybody. If you are like, traditionally, yes, you practice 6. I will tell you what you're supposed to do traditionally, but you decide what you're going to do, because ain't no dude in India going to tell me that my life is not going to be happy unless I practice 6 days a week. Like, fuck no. Yeah. You are not here living my life. I've tried it. I've tried it more than once. It doesn't feel good to me. Yeah. We're not 6-year-old boys. So yeah, there's this goal that we look towards, but there's no end. Like, yeah. You think?
Do it and then
Of course, that's how it goes. Like, that's your old contract with yourself. Write a new one. Write a new one. Like, that's not you anymore. So also you also know that you're kapha, right? So you know that when you're in that groove, you like can keep going. And then when you back out, you're kind of like groove in the other direction. So that's a balance for you too. I'm more pitta. For me, I must learn the lesson of not getting to the top of that mountain. Like, I don't need to get to the top anymore. My lesson is in, can I feel okay not getting there? You know? And then there's the fine line of, okay, am I too okay with it?
yeah.
Like, should I get to the top sometimes? You know, and that's just a daily thing. Like, but you know where I can figure it out? On my mat. I know exactly where my mind is by how I'm doing the poses, what I'm thinking, you know. Yeah. That's the cool thing about it. Yeah. All right. That was a good check-in, you guys. Love it. Okay. Ready for the anatomy quiz? We're doing it together. Don't worry. I'm gonna go get the skeleton. This is not. We are doing it together. Yeah. Heck yeah. Mhm. Really. So, what if I bought it for the studio and we kind of share it? Yeah, because we have the library. Hold on. Let's fold it. For what? Oh, I mean, yeah, you decide. You decide. Okay, I'm gonna go get our little skeleton dude. Um, by the way, this is the book that I had in my very first 200-hour teacher training. And this was also like a supplement, but this is basically everything. I mean, there's more in here than we need to know, but over the last however many years of me teaching, everything that I'm having us learn are things that always come up. And it's like safely, that should come up. That should come up in classes. I'll say that. Oh, I have colored ones too, if you guys want. Do you want the color one? Yeah, let's go with that. They're just not stapled. I'll use the I'm gonna go get the skeleton too, because you guys do want to know. I mean, this is, believe it or not, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have. And I've worked with people in the yoga world who don't even know what their quadriceps and hamstrings are. Grown adults. And it's sad, right? Like, we live in these bodies. We want to know them. Okay, so it's just a Google ankle. So, what do you guys think about number one? Lucianne, I'll email this to you. Okay. This is something you're going to forget 100 times. Actually, the only thing you need to know is that like ligaments are not super stretchy. Tendons, you can stretch more, but either way, they're not like, when you are having like hamstrings, for example, you don't want to feel it behind the knee where the attachment is to the muscle. You want to feel it in the belly of the muscle, right? Otherwise, you're going to tear the ends of the muscles. Tiny tears over time, not good. Whether it's ligaments or tendons, we need to be careful that they're not overstretched. Yeah, ligaments are bone to bone. Yeah, right? Ligaments are what keep the bones together, and then tendons are muscle to bone, right? Yes. Yeah. Which is bone to bone on your knee. Through fascia, for sure. Well, my phone is up there, but maybe we can look that up. I'm not sure. So, but again, in the yoga room, you want to know that the people should not be feeling a pull in their tendons and ligaments, right?
Is that tendons were related to muscle because meat is muscle?
Tender, I love that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm going to tell you how I remember abductors and adductors. Here's and it's very strange, but I don't care. It's the same, like how I remember horizontal and vertical is also weird. Don't judge me, okay? If you have a better one, just tell. First of all, because this is so bad, because I'm not, like, I am sex positive, but I think of horizontal, lying flat like a whore. Like makes no sense, but that in my mind it does. So I always remember horizontal or the horizon. My husband's like, what about the horizon? I'm like, nope. Yep, horizontal. So for the adductor and abductor, I remember that like in order to add humans, it's the adductors, you have to be like here between the legs, adductors, to add humans to the world. Bet you guys will never forget it. Yeah, but to me that like doesn't equate the same. Like I'm more visual in obviously a twisted way, but I know this. I'm super twisted. I get yeah. The tender meat. I'll never forget that because yep. Okay. So pronation, supination, neutral. Because we're always looking for neutrality in the body, right? Even when you talk about, I mean, you can get way deep into like internal and external rotation of the hips, where you're actually not internally rotated, it's actually neutral, but that's like going a little bit too deep. Like basic in the yoga room, we're talking internal, external rotation, but we're always looking for, that's why when Jason said something about me saying in the yoga room, have a straight spine. I was like, well, I would never say that. Be careful what you say, like, because our spine is not straight. This is a neutral spine. Our spines are not straight. Yeah. Okay. So which one, like, tell me what that first one on the left is. Let's start with the middle one. What is that? Yeah, that one is okay. All right. So mhm. So think about the left and the right foot. They're both doing this. They're both doing the same thing. Yep, they're both supinated. It is a trick question. You know what? I want you guys to stand up for a minute. I want you to look at your own feet. That's a left foot. Yeah. Okay, so if it was a right foot, then what would that be? And they're going to have terrible knee pain when they're older. Do you work on it with them? Okay, what do we do? Balls. Tell them to press the ball mound of the big toe. That's good. That fixes it fixes flat foot, it fixes pronation, it fixes supination. So looking at your own feet, like don't engage anything right now. Just stand up and see what your feet naturally do. Yeah. Yep, your ankles go in. So your pronation, your supination. Yours are more supination than anything, but they're pretty neutral. Mhm. So that's what happens when you have flat feet or when you pronate, when your feet pronate, when you have too much weight on the inner edges of the feet, your ankles collapse in. Yep. So what happened, that could be, yeah, for her, that could be the case because when you press the ball mounds of the big toes, you have to engage. You have to ask your muscles to support themselves around the bones. So yeah, press the ball mounds of the big toes. You're like, press, so weight to the outside of the feet and press the ball mounds. Now you're neutral.
It's almost like a trick.
It is. So sometimes I say to students, like, pretend you have four corners of your feet, but really it depends. Like it could be try two, because that makes more sense to me actually. And eventually, like once people are good with pressing the ball mound of the big toe, then you actually press the ball mound of the pinky toe also. So that's where, you want to just, first of all, even out the weight in your feet and then see what happens. And then pressing the ball mound of the big toe should be part of that evening out. Yeah. Neutral. And now look at your knees, how neutral they are. Go the other way. Well, your knees actually don't cave in too much, but they will eventually because they're getting overstretched on the outsides.
Yeah.
Do you see how that's like related? And people who go out, they're overstretched on the inside because their knees go out and then they're shortened here. So that ligament that's shortened here, they probably have more of a risk of like a tear. We want neutral. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hell yes. Well, that makes sense of why your kids' ankles are collapsed then. That more of that, it's called like pigeon toed or duck feet or whatever. Yeah. So people who come to me with back pain, that's one of the first things what I do. We basically do Tadasana or Samastitihi. Because my feet naturally, they stand out like this. I have to be very intentional about keeping my feet parallel. And then what happens is my knees go in because My knees are straight where my feet are out, right? Once I put them in, they go in. So what I have to do is make sure I'm working on my feet muscles. And then my quadriceps, I actually have to use them to move the knees. And then I learn to walk again and everything is aligned and my back no longer hurts. Yeah. It's so tedious, but so life-changing. Like it starts with the feet. Yeah. And honestly, in the Mysore room, we don't talk about it a ton. That's more one-on-one, like when I get to know somebody's body. Like I didn't know your ankles did that. But you know, eventually I would probably notice it. I'm not going to notice it like on the screen. But quadricep strength has a lot to do with how we keep the knees in place and everything too. Yeah. Cool, right? Okay. So if you want to be like, you could help so many people, and I guarantee you're gonna be walking down the street and you're gonna be like, knees, hips, wow, like their ankles are collapsed. Yeah. Yeah, no, there's like you want to do chaturangas for the toes. So you want to teach him to do this and then do this. You're literally like chaturangas with the toes because my arches are weak because of having my supination my whole life, right? I supinate and my feet go out. So what I've had to do is work on the muscles on my arches. And by doing this, I feel that. I spent a whole summer one year working on my feet muscles in the bathtub. I just have my feet up and I'd be like, yeah, there's tons of muscles in your feet. If you start doing it intentionally, you will. Yeah. Yes. And then you could do things like circles with the big toes, both directions. So you could have people lift their toes, start with the pinky, the ring, the middle, and then the toe, and then do it in the other direction. Like there's lots of things you can do for your feet. Super important first, but yeah, if you want to help someone in your family that has back pain, look at how they stand. Be like, all right, when I do one-on-one instruction with people, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get down on the floor. Like, don't think I'm weird, but I'm going to look at your feet and your knees because those are windows to the hips, to the back. Okay. Next one. So we're describing the motion of the spine. In the first one, what's happening with the spine? And forward folds in general. Do you guys agree with that? What do you think? Most of us think it's extension, but it's actually flexion. Yeah, because remember, we're not folding in half like a book. When we're doing a forward fold, we're not going like this. We're actually folding forward. Anytime your spine is, you're flexing in the front of the body, the spine is in flexion. A lot of people do forward folds and arm balances with a straight spine. You're just not going to be able to do it. You have to think flexing the front of your body to get there.
It's weird though, because it almost feels like a contraction.
Well, and we're very, like, come to this place where we're obsessed with having a straight spine. When in forward folds, your spine has to be in flexion. The lumbar, no. Lumbar pretty much stays neutral. Thoracic, flexion. And if you're doing this flexion with no engagement, dangerous. You have to be engaged. The muscles have to help support the spine. Back muscles, well, technically in a forward fold, your belly is actually not engaged. You're actually soft. But the back muscles are, yeah, the legs and the back muscles a lot. Yep. So practice just bringing it in and up, and kind of like, I kind of imagine my guts kind of going in and up and then kind of pouring out onto my leg. The belly is soft. The back muscles are engaged. Sure, there is. It should be more subtle though. Now, there's caveats to that. Okay, that's the end result. Because my back was so messed up when I started this practice, in spite of all of the work that I had done. But as far as like the front of my body being open and my spine and stuff like that, my body was not used to stretching. I showed you my forward folds were neutral. A lot of that was super tight lower back muscles. So I felt it in my back for a very long time, which eventually would have affected my hips or whatever, but I had to engage my abdominals a ton through my whole practice for a long time until I got past, that growth stage of super tight lower back. And now now I can move on to the next, fine tuning, which is now I can hollow out the belly. Yeah. My up dogs, everything. I had to really engage my abdominals to protect my lower back. And my teacher didn't tell me that. I did it intuitively. Like, if I'm going to continue this practice, this is what I have to do. I'm not going to harm my body by feeling like I'm protecting it, and then eventually over time, like, okay, can I loosen that up a little bit? I might just forget one day and it doesn't hurt. So, yeah, always reevaluating. Okay, what's the last one? Good. Do you know the difference between Tadasana and Samasthiti, by the way? Like the translation? I mean, yeah, Tada is mountain, Tadasana is mountain pose. So even in Tadasana, people will bring their feet together, right? And everything is completely aligned. I was taught more of like line it up with the hips, and that way, and inner edges of the feet are parallel. So Tadasana, the inner edges of the feet are parallel. Samastitihi, which means equal balance pose or even standing pose, like translates those two things. The outer edges of my feet are parallel instead. For me, it makes my knees go in like this. And so for me, I keep my toes apart because my individual body, like, I don't care if a teacher tells me to bring my big toes together. I don't, because it doesn't work for my body. I do this, and I can still find enlightenment in my life without that. You think? So yeah, that's something that I don't care how many teachers tell me, I just don't do it. Your big toes are touching. So it does cause the outer edges to be more parallel. Yeah. And energetically, that has something to do with it too. Like when we're doing mudras and stuff like that, it's to keep like the energy from like dispersing through fingers and stuff like that. So like when your toes are together, I imagine that even standing has something to do with like the nadis and stuff like that too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And some people will do Tadasana like this. That's actually not that's Urdhva Hastasana, upward facing hands. or something, it's something like that. Urdhva hasta, hands. Urdhva is upward hand pose. So your hands are up. Yeah, in Tadasana, because everything is totally balanced even through the fingertips. Yeah. Okay. And generally, only in Ashtanga is it Samasthiti. Everywhere else in the Hatha yoga world, it's Tadasana. Okay. What's the spine doing in this next one? Good. What about the forward fold? Yep. Okay. Back bend stuff. And then the last one. Yep. What about this one? Yeah. And then this one may be tricky, but what is this last one? She's on her knees doing chaturanga. Yeah, that's neutral. It should be. Some people do extension, right? You hurt yourself from doing it. Yeah. So next time I give that idea, we're gonna just like not take it all the way to the max. Just be off a little bit. Again, intuition, protect your body. Okay. Yeah, and next one, adduction or abduction. What about the one on the left? She's lifting her leg out to the right. Yeah, abduction, adduction. They do say it like that, so because it sounds the same. And then what is the right one? Adduction.
So you're just it's still like
Oh, yes, right. So that, which makes sense. But for me, I'm like, okay, these are the muscles that need to be engaged, right? Okay. So throw that out the window. The left is abduction, the right is adduction. And of course, you're adding more towards the center of the body is a good one too. All right, what about the bottom left? He's lifting his arm. Abduction, ab, yeah. And then bringing it closer to the body. Really, in the yoga room, what we're mostly going to talk about is adductors. So just know that it's the inner thighs. Because I'd rather say adductors instead of inner thighs to a student too. So language, like using that medical term, or what is it called when you're using the actual terms? It's not scientific, names of anatomic, rather than just saying like your inner thighs. Like that's kind of a trauma area. So even when I'm telling people like bring your legs together, I don't say bring your legs together. I say bring your knees and your ankles as close together as you can. Okay, this is fun. All right, so the first one, he's going like this. What is that? What is he doing to his scapula here? Yep, elevation. And then bringing them, ooh, this is good. This is good, actually. Do you see in this middle picture? Okay, I want to clarify something with drawing the shoulder blades down the back. We're not trying to get our shoulders out, like we're not trying to pull our shoulders away from our ear. Do you see how my shoulders are not grounded at all? And now they are. So the shoulder blades technically are going like this. Like they're technically depressing and protracting. Some people are so much like this, you actually have to tell them to bring the inner edges of the shoulder blades towards each other and down. So depending on what's going on. Okay, So what is that middle one? Yep. Yeah, because we can become obsessed with keeping our shoulders away from the ears, and then we're just ungrounding our shoulders. The humeri are not in the sockets. Okay. That's where the phrase deepening the armpits comes from, because to me, it feels like I'm deepening my armpits. Some people are like, yeah, like if you're in plank, you're not just going like this, you're actually like deepening the armpits to engage to engage your shoulder girdle. Yeah. Try to deepen your armpits the next time you're in practice. Okay. Squeezing them towards each other. Yeah. And then away. Yep. Or protraction. I think when it comes to shoulder blades, we use more protraction and retraction, but it still means the same thing. Okay. And then this middle guy, he's spreading them apart and lifting them up. Yeah. And then the last guy. He's actually neutral. It's not. Okay, so downward rotation, return to neutral position. Yeah. Good though. That's great. Okay, antagonist muscles. Fill in the blank. Okay, as the quadriceps contract, the blank relax. Do we agree with that? Okay, we'll wait a second. Okay, that is correct. That's going to be huge for yourself and for students. Again, that is why people with super tight hamstrings, I'm telling them to engage their legs more. It's so that their freaking hamstrings get the message to let go. You know, it's crazy. Okay. And if the hamstrings are long, then they need to be protected the same exact way. Okay, as the blank contract, the biceps relax. Yeah. Triceps, yep. Okay, as the lats contract, the what relaxes? You guys think about it. What do you think? So lats are like, they're connected to the shoulder blade and they're like a big muscle that comes down here. They're part of your shoulder girdle that does a lot of work in chaturangas and for, yeah. Okay. Well, let's do it for a second. Let's do it for a second. Deepen it's the whole like serratus anterior, lats, like this whole part. When you do that, you feel this open up more, your sternum can lift more. That's more of that's Uddiyana Bandha. When you are like neutral and yeah, because that's putting your spine in a neutral position, right? You're neutral. And when you're neutral, your abs, the abdominal wall, it engages the way it's supposed to. We're not supposed to not have an engagement there. It should always feel like a slight engagement. And when we're in neutral, you're like, wait a second, let me get rid of. Because when you're engaging the lats, you're actually bringing your spine. Yours goes forward. You're a little bit hyperlordosis. Okay, so that totally disengages the abdominals. Once you go neutral and you use these muscles to do it, the belly can come in and up a little bit. I know. That's why your traps are doing all the work. So that is a huge homework assignment for you. This. Figure out how to engage the lats and the serratus muscles. Yeah, because when you do that, you felt it, you're there, you felt it. Because you're like, abdominals engaging? Yes, yes. And that way, because the trapezius are so fucking bossy, they try to do everything. They're carrying you in your chaturangas right now, and they shouldn't be. All of this should be helping you. So instead of modifying, learn to turn on those muscles. That's my advice. Don't modify to bypass by practicing. You had to do the same thing. Because it's actually going to change your up dog too, because your up dog doesn't really bend yet, but once these back muscles engage, it'll pull you down and lift this, because this will feel supported by this, and it'll open up, and then these can be like, all right, you guys got it. You got it. Well, we'll work on it. Yep. We'll work on it. Okay. Yeah. Some people go their whole life with these muscles asleep. They don't use them at all, their whole life, right? If there's one reason why you're in this training is to fix that, or not to fix, it's not broken, but to be aware of that, that's a win for like the rest of your life. Honestly, it's seriously. And when I did start getting into dropbacks and stuff, because of this being, I mean, I did a ton of massage work in my pectorals, and then I did a ton of lat work and back muscle work to try to help me feel supported in my spine. Changed everything. Okay. Give me an example of active stretching. Maybe a pose. Give me an Ashtanga pose. Yep. All of it. Yes. All of it. All of it. What about passive stretching? Yeah, that is actually, yeah, a restorative class where you're just supported by bolsters. If I'm just lying on the yoga wheel, and well, maybe I do have to be active, but even like legs up the wall, Viparita Karani, you're stretching your hamstrings, but you're not actively stretching them. You're passively stretching them. And you have to use your abdominal muscles a little bit to keep your leg, but you don't have to actually if they're resting on the wall. Okay, dynamic stretching. Yeah, or like if you're like doing one of these, yeah, you're actually like extending, contracting, extending, contracting. Yeah. Totally. Because honestly, that's what it takes to get the muscle to grow. Which is different than like a bulk muscle is different than a toned muscle, right? We kind of talked about that. When your muscles are toned, they should be soft. They should be able to like engage when you want them engaged, but they should be soft and not like armor. Like the girl that was in here this morning, or lady, I always say girl, but she's a lady. She's a fucking adult. Kate, it was her first time doing Ashtanga. It was her first time. She might have been gone by the time you came in. Dark hair. No, I think she was wearing black. But anyway, she lifts like 6 times a week. She is super muscular. And she was like, by the end of the class, isn't that funny? But yeah, her muscles are not toned. They're bulked. It's armor. So what do you think that does to one's nervous system? If your muscles are constantly on, like that's what your nervous system feels all the time. They're fucking jacked up, man. They're like, no, that's like general statement, but but your muscles are meant to, they have to like soften when you want them to. Okay. At least if for like a healthy muscle. I'm not saying lift, I love lifting. I do. But if I get to a point where I'm not able to, if I'm losing range of motion because of muscle, I'm out. Like I back off a little bit, right? So, okay. This one, God, I hate these so much. Planes of motion, sagittal, coronal, and transverse. I'm just gonna say, okay. So that would be number 3, where you're just folding in half. And then number 1 would be like, it's even on both sides if you were to cut it down the middle, right? You're not going to really need to know this in a yoga class, but it does come up sometimes. So can someone Google it really quickly? Exactly. Let's look it up because I don't want to give you the wrong information. I am not, like, I always forget these. Mhm. Because you're changing in space where that upper body is. And then number 1, okay, yeah, coronal is this way. Number 1 would be coronal. To what? Well, yeah, that's true. I'm going to remember that. Transverse is splitting in hair. Take a look at it. This is what I'm saying. When it comes to yoga poses, to me, it's confusing, but it might make more sense to you guys. Yeah. Transmuting. Yeah. Okay, this is good stuff. Huh? We did because it's not super important for but it's something that you want to like extend your knowledge about. You know, it'll come up sometimes in the yoga world. All right, I'm going to point to something and you're going to tell me what it is. You can just all shout it out. Yep. Humorous. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rib cage. Just say both of these together. Nope, this is the humerus. Oh, close. Ulna. And then radius. Radius and ulna. The radius is the one that twists over the top. I think the way Jason said something like your funny bone is here, but it's not humerus. The top, yeah. Okay. And we talked about this last week. This is, we don't need to really know, but the carpal, the metacarpals, and then the phalanges. All right. Like this whole thing, the whole pelvis. Yeah. Okay, what's this? It is. And then what are you going to call it in the yoga room? Because you are going to say it. Or pelvic rim. Yeah, those, instead of saying hips, pelvic rim or waist is better. I mean, honestly, it's whatever your students, you're teaching them the language, you know? Okay, just always say like the simple version of it after you say like the technical version. What about in here? That joint between the sacrum and the ilium. SI joint. Sacroiliac joint, say something like that, SI joint. Okay, what is this triangle thing? That's the sacrum. And then this thing down here, coccyx. Notice that the coccyx does not curl up, it curls under. So we use the sacrum as like a reference point, or the sitting bones, which is my next, what are these? Yeah, do you know the actual name for them? Ischial tuberosity. That's why we say sitting bones. People would be like, I'm not fucking coming back to this class. I don't. Okay, what about here? Pubic bone. Yeah. And we did the sacrum. Okay. All right, let's go to the spine. This part of the spine. And how many vertebrae are there? It's C1 through 7. Yep. That is C7. Like you can feel it on your own. That's the one that sticks out. Yeah. And actually that's a good reference point for people. Like when we're doing, our finishing postures, like shoulder stand and stuff like that, if that thing is poking way out and you have a flat neck, that's not safe. Like your neck is not in a safe spot. You want it to be as neutral as possible. So it should be, I mean, that vertebrae always sticks out, but it should be kind of sunk into the body. And then you have those 2 tendons in the back of your neck with like the valley in the middle. That's how you know your neck, your cervical spine is neutral. Yeah. So put just one hand behind your back, feel your cervical spine, bring your chin down like you're looking at your computer, flat neck. This is how we are most of the time. So what is holding our head up? No, not the muscle. Yeah, like our traps we have like some other important stuff going on here that like for our scalenes, like for me, I always have to have those worked on. Bring your head to a neutral position to where you feel that soften in the middle. Yeah, it's little, but it matters, right? Okay, what is this part of the spine called? Thoracic, yeah. And so what is the close? 12. Yeah. And then we have these, which are what? Wasn't that hilarious that I was cracking up at myself so much in that Instagram story. It was like, oh, there goes my floating rib again. I couldn't stop. I showed it to my daughter. She's like, yeah, funny. I'm like, isn't this hilarious? Okay. And then what is this part? Yep. Which is L1 through what? Usually. Sometimes people have a 6. Yeah. All right. And so this is considered part of the spine too. Well, we don't talk about it as part of the spine because it's kind of weird. Like this is our tail, right? Okay, we're good with all that stuff. You are going to talk about these parts all the time. People need to learn that language for sure. I mean, even when it comes to like Janu B, when they're like, where does my heel go? Right behind the pubis bone. I usually say between 1 and 2 because most people don't know where that is, the pubis bone is. But I could say between 1 and 2, right behind your pubis bone, and then teach them what that means. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, but they still have that space. Yeah. Okay. This. Okay, what is the ball part? Femur head. We talk about the head of the femur all the time. I do in my classes because people either are hanging out on their ligaments with their feet out like this, or when you are neutral, which seems more like an internal rotation, then they're actually supported. They're supporting their pelvic muscles instead of like having hip pain or weak hips, the clicking of the hips. I talk about this with my students. Do you know what this is? It just left me. The greater trochanter, part of the femur, but it's like you can feel it on the side of, it's that bony part that sticks out on the side. So, okay, so you see people that like, okay, we're talking Tadasana, right? Here's my greater trochanter. You see this a lot, right? Out on the ligaments, belly is, I mean, the lower back is getting crunched, the upper back is rounded. Now, alignment wise, and you'll be able to see this on your students, feet and ankles come first. But when I'm doing like a one-on-one session, I check for where this is lined up. It should be lined up over the ankles, which for me makes me want to lift my toes a little bit because naturally that my body should be neutral or feel that, but lined up over the ankle. So then it feels like you're sticking your butt out, right? And then it makes me want to go like this. If I ground the hips, deepen the groins, all those things that I say, but then you just have to lift the heart. So my spine, I'm not doing anything with my spine right now. It's doing what it's supposed to do. I feel that natural pull of the belly in and up, but the greater trochanter should be lined up over the ankle. The shoulders will do what the shoulders will actually do what they're supposed to do if your weight is evenly lined up. I mean, I guess I could. I mean, it looked pretty neutral here, right? I'm not forcing anything. If I force, then I'm like more like this. Yeah. If the pelvis is in the right spot, the spine goes along for the ride. Just naturally does what it's supposed to do. That's why when you're sitting, I mean, I have students in here that, like Jason, for example, his hamstrings are so tight. His forward folds are like this. They're so tight. I give him a blanket to sit on. I'm trying to work that pelvis to tilt forward, to actually be in a neutral, it feels like an anterior tilt. You're going for the anterior tilt, but I'm just trying to get him in a neutral spot. Yeah, it starts in the pelvis always. Okay. Okay, here we go. What are these? Correct. Also called P. Yes. And then down here. Yep, tibia and fibula. And then they're just going to break his leg here. What is this? Correct. Calcaneus. So your Achilles tendon is attached to that, and then it goes up here, and then it separates into the gastrocnemius, which we're not doing muscles right this second. But, and then we have the tarsals and the metatarsals again. Okay, let me see. What time is it? Do you guys have the time?
Yeah.
5 to noon? Okay, let's keep going for a few more minutes. Types of joints. What is the shoulder? Whoa, what is the shoulder joint? Do we agree with that? Okay. What is elbow? Elbow is a hinge, but it has the elbow bone, so there's a little bit more rotation there. So I think it's actually called something else. Will you look it up in here? Okay. Knee, 100% need to know this. Okay. Because of this bone here, the elbow does, I think, more of like a glide thing. But the knee is 100% a hinge. Yep, ball and socket. Now, why does the arm go around like all the way, but the hip cannot? You can't do that with your leg. Yep, because of the depth of the socket. There are things like, there's a padding here. what is that called? Like that gel padding, the hip, the femur head and the hip joint. Some people tear that sometimes and get injuries there. Your psoas, do you remember about the psoas? Okay, so the psoas actually connects to the entire lumbar, wraps all the way around to the front of the pelvis. It's there's so many things you can learn about the psoas. It's really important because it'll tell you a lot, but it's the muscle biggest, it's the muscle that connects our upper body to our lower body. Like that's the muscle holding us together. It's the muscle that is responsible for us walking upright. It's the muscle that brings us into the fetal position. It is a hugely trauma absorbent muscle. Okay, so that doesn't mean it has to be tight, but if you're messing around with it, you might be feeling some stuff. Okay. Okay. That's the pivot part. And then the actual elbow joint is a hinge. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. Muscle wise, this is not like super clear, but what is this? What is this? Yep. What is this? Yep. What is this? Down here, up here. Let's just use our hands. Here. Yeah, there's major and minor, but major pectoral, and like that is like when you are in, oh, ow, his glutes just broke my nail. When you're in like Supta Karmasana, you're doing so much in this area with the shoulder joint and the collarbones. Like for me with super tight pectoral muscles, I mean, they're so much better now, but attached to my collarbone, the more I was adjusted in this, the more my collarbone wanted to like pop out, you know? Yeah, so these are a big deal. What about the outer layer of the abdominals? Yeah, and then the underneath. Do you want to see, stand up for a second. I think we did this in the beginning. Did we do the thing with the fingertips or the pinkies? All right, come into Tadasana. Tadasana. All right, so we're lined up, right? Like try to even get the greater trochanter lined up with the ankle. If your toes lift, that's fine, but try pressing the ball mounds of the big toes still. Bring your pinkies to your pelvic rim, like the pokiest part you can find, and then close your eyes. Make sure you're not just dumping into your lumbar, but evenly breathe so that your rib cage expands evenly. Depress the shoulder blades or the scapula down the back, chin parallel to the floor. We're going to take a couple breaths here, just lightly touching our pinkies only to our bony part, the front of the pelvis. Okay, the light touch is important, okay? So just a light touch. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, feel as though your pinkies are drawing towards each other. Like they're not going to really, but feel like they're pulling towards each other. Do you feel your deep abdominals engaging? As you exhale, do you feel them contracting? That's your transverse abdominals. Transversus abdominis. It's just a slight, like with the pinky thing, just a slight feel of engagement, a little bit deeper behind the rectus abdominis. For me, that's the best way I can get people to find those muscles if they're not sure about it yet, right? You probably didn't feel it a ton, did you? Do you know why? From here to here, all of this. Yeah, it's all connected. Yep. Something actually that might be good. I had to do this for a long time, but shoulder blades against the wall, because your posture is not bad or anything, but when your shoulder blades are against the wall and you're actually neutral, it forces your abdominals to engage because you're in like the right spot. And we don't care about six packs and things like that. We care about toning the abdominal wall to hold the guts in. Yeah, don't. No, because remember we lumbar neutral, right? So we're not this is where we think about the bandhas and where it can get complicated, right? So here I have too much lumbar. If I bring the belly in and up and evenly lift, like a visceral feeling of evenly breathing, lifting the rib cage away from the pelvis, that's neutral. The rectus abdominis are actually just a supporting muscle of the transverse abdominals. Yeah. Get to know your body this well, because this is going to help you as you age and start feeling you do. Just because you get older doesn't mean you have to feel all this pain in your body. We're going to feel it, but well, you're using your body. Okay. I'm just saying we don't have to be like, well, that's just a part of life. I'm just, no, it doesn't have to be totally like that. All right. Let me see here. So we have the trapezius deltoid. Where's your serratus anterior? Yeah, like below your armpits. And it looks like a jagged, like it's a serrated muscle. These are so important because people will do so much without engaging there. They don't, like, they have it, but you're mostly calling on your lats and like the big muscles in the back of the body. But these have, like, you want to do a headstand, this has to work. God, I'm thinking of like any type of arm balance like that, you're deepening the armpits and engaging here. So, okay. What about your rhomboids? Yeah, those are your rhomboids have to do a ton of work in this practice. Okay. Pelvic floor. We know where the pelvic floor is. We know that the pelvic floor works with the diaphragm, right? We know the importance of that. What about your sartorius? We're going down to the legs. Do you remember where that is? Just think of it like as a big S going down your leg. Like it's not actually an S, but it starts up here and it's like the longest muscle in your body. It comes all the way down and attaches to the inside of the knee. Remember I was saying how trying to put my leg behind my head, I felt that because on this side, because of that old injury, that sartorius muscle, I feel it really after I'm done stretching that. This leg, I don't feel it at all. So you might not even feel it, but it does a lot of work. Hamstrings, we know where our hamstrings are. Yeah. How many are there? And some people, like in the medical world, might even say 4. Like some physical therapists and stuff will say 4 because of the biceps femoris. It actually splits. So there's 3, but one of them splits. So some people will say 4. Yeah. The tensor fascia latae, where's that? It's close. It's up here. So it's near, what other muscle is up here? What glute muscle? Yeah, which is huge, especially when people are doing this. I mean, that's glute med, that's TFL. When you're doing boat pose, and I mean, yeah, that's a lot of psoas, but if you have weak glute med, I mean, outside of Ashtanga, side planks, tree pose. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So I don't know exactly. We'll have to look it up. I think the glute med might go over the TFL. I'm not sure if the TFL is deep to that, but just know that the TFL goes into your IT band. Yeah. Tendon muscle, right? Which goes down to your knee. So when people start doing this practice and they have knee pain, but they're pretty flexible, their knees are not, they're not like doing anything damaging. for me, it's either as I've grown, and as I've gained mobility, there are some bumps along the way. And for me, it's been tight quadriceps. I've had to get like those massaged out or rolled. And then the TFL and the glute med, because that's pulling on, like, if that's short and the IT band is pulling, which is pulling on my knee, which I'm feeling a pain in the, so the things that attach to our knees also have to be paid attention to. This is important because part of what we were going to talk about today, and we're almost done here. I think we're pretty much done. When your students are feeling these things, or they're feeling like they have an injury, or they're like, yeah, my knee or my wrist or my foot, like that girl today, her foot, she's never done anything to her feet. So she can go into half lotus. Her hip is tight. She knows that, but she feels more pain in her foot. Her foot has never been extended like that. That's a lot. Most people feel foot pain and it's like teaching them, okay, does it feel like a sharp pain, like an injurious pain? Or is it like feel like it needs to stretch over time? Well, usually like 90% of the time, 95% of the time, they're like, it just feels like a stretch. I'm like, okay, just stop where it's like 70% and just breathe. And then over time that should go away. It's not our job to like ask about injuries or anything, but usually if there's foot stuff, they'll be like, yeah, I broke my ankle or whatever. Okay, well then we're going to definitely do this, modify, do this to a certain point. But if you need to, give them don't tell them to absolutely right away modify. If you feel like you need to modify, you could do this, because we're also taking away their opportunity of growth if we're just being like, here's the belt, we're taking away their opportunity to grow. It's there if they need it, but it's not the first thing we go to. Okay. All right. So as we know, intercostals. Yeah, all the muscles in between we'll probably get to see it at the lab. They're like really fibrous. And they cross over like this. And I never knew I had intercostal muscles until I was doing the Maris. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I have to use muscles in my rib cage? Yeah. And that's really done a ton for my mobility in my spine. Like, oh my God, yes. Okay. And then the QL muscles. Mine are a pain all the time. Most people, like if they have lower back pain, a lot of the times it can be the QL muscles. For whatever reason, they're being overstretched because of tucking, or they're getting dumped on with hyperlordosis, hyperlumbar lordosis. And yeah, sometimes that's just a point of concern. So are we good? It's a lot of info, but you guys are like, I feel like we're doing so good today. This is, maybe we'll go over it quickly. We did all of these ligaments. Yeah, we did this on the test. When we're talking about the shoulder joint, there's so much to know. If people think that they have a rotator cuff tear, like believe them, always believe them, right? Don't ever be like, yeah, it's not okay. Well, if like we'll modify for that kind of stuff. Knees and shoulders, like please be very careful. But if they can't lift their arm over their head, or if they can't go past here, most likely it's true. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here. Just know that we don't want to use this so much. We want to use this. Okay. Oh, how long ago? Okay. Yeah. Sometimes, and if it's been a year and it's not totally gone away, I'm not a doctor, but what I would recommend to a student is you should probably get it looked at to make sure there's nothing more serious. And if not just that, but if you could do some physical therapy or something, why live with the pain? Even if you just feel it a little bit, why not like strengthen it back up? So this will be because you also don't engage here a ton, right? We actually, after we talked about, like when you moved your hands from here to here, that like kicked on your serratus immediately. And I feel like you've got that ever since, right? That should take some weight off your shoulders. But yeah, like short term. Yeah. Yeah. That's part of your story now. You're gonna deal with, yeah, all three of you right now have shoulder pain. Uh-huh. Let's ask for it. We'll ask for it. All right. You guys ready to eat lunch? I'll give you the address of the coffee shop if you want, even if you want to buy coffee and go there, I won't be offended, okay? Because I don't have like, no, I just thought I'd show it to you guys. We can, like, there's chairs there. And we can just have the door open